Hello and welcome to my series The Evolution of Formula 1, and this is episode 2, the 60s. 1960 started out with Jack Brabham winning his second consecutive world title aboard his Cooper Climax, and after that season the rules changed to a set of Formula 2 rules basically for the 1961 season, and the biggest change was the engine capacity that was altered from 2.5 to a 1.5 engine, and Ferrari actually anticipated on this beautifully and made this fantastically beautiful Ferrari 156 Dino with the very iconic nostrils in the nose, and it was the shark nose, as you can see why. And the car dominated the whole season with German Wolfgang Graf Berger von Trips and his American teammate Phil Hill dicing it out for the world title. So Ferrari did a good job anticipating on these rule changes, as I said, and this car was just a marvel. And this is the V6 1.5 engine that led them to the world title. And the world title was decided at the second to last race in Monza, Italy, where sadly German Graf Berger von Trips was killed whilst racing with Jim Clark for position, and had a huge crash and was killed unfortunately. So the race went to his American teammate Phil Hill, who won the race and the world championship, and after that Ferrari withdrew from the last race at Watkins Glen. This car was also the first Formula 1 Ferrari with the engine at the back, or in the middle if you will, because the year before, 1960, they were basically the only constructor still left with the engine at the front, but the rule changes did Ferrari a world of good and produced this rather fantastic car, which has a bit of a tragic history, of course, with the Von Trips incident. And this model is made by CMC, and it is the car that raced at Monza, as you can see, with the scoops on the nose and in front of the cockpit there. And Exoto also made a version of this car which is actually even better than this one. This one is already very beautiful, but it was twice as expensive and it's not twice as good, so that's why I went for the CMC version, which is just amazing. And I really love this car. I love the look of it, the history of it, and I'm very happy to have this in my collection. So then we're gonna move along to the Lotus 49 of the 1968 Formula 1 season. It made its debut the year before in 67 and won their first race immediately with Jim Clark, and this is Graham Hill, the 1968 world champion, the Lotus Ford. Lotus, of course, made famous by its inventor Colin Chapman, who was a great engineer as well, of course, and well, he invented lots of very important stuff in Formula 1, which is still used to this day. And his first big invention was the Lotus 25 with the fully stressed monocoque, where it provided a well, basically the stability and the structure of the car. And this Lotus 49 was the first one in which the engine was mounted as a structural piece onto the monocoque, and was very successful, of course. It also featured seat belts already, and the cockpit was much more enclosed, but still to today's standards it's totally unsafe, of course. But the marriage between Ford and Lotus was a very successful one, and this is actually the first title for the very famous Ford Dfv engine, which won multiple championships and races, and they went on to win until the 1981 season, I believe, with Williams. I'm not really sure, but anyways, the Ford Dfv engine was successful for a whole period of time in Formula 1 and other forms of motorsports as well, so a very iconic engine. And it all started out with this Lotus 49, of course. This Lotus was also very important in terms of aerodynamics. It was one of the first cars to sport these wings on the front and on the back, and as you can see, it already fell off. And in real life it also happened because these wings were quite flimsy, and as you can see, even the model is the same. Well, the front wings were quite sturdy actually because they were bolted straight onto the chassis, but these rear wings were pretty high and had these very flimsy stakes it was standing on, and it was bolted straight onto the suspension. And I think the engineers underestimated the forces, the aerodynamic forces on these wings, and they happened to collapse from time to time. This car, by the way, is also important because it was the first to feature real sponsorship and the tobacco sponsorship with a gold leaf color scheme, replacing the typical British racing green of the Lotus. And then we'll move along to the 1969 World Championship winner, the Metra Ford, entered by Tyrrell and driven to the World Championship by Scotsman Sir Jackie Stewart, again with the same Ford Dfv engine. So a second world title for that engine then. And this car featured the same aerodynamic features as the Lotus, as you can see, but even more evolved. They're actually upside down aeroplane wings, and it looked like that as well. And still a very crude installment with these support cables, which didn't do a lot, I think. And still the wings were on these thin stakes, straight onto the suspension, bolted straight onto the suspension, and they fell off a few times. At what point the governing body decided to ban those high wings altogether, which was a good thing for safety, I guess. This car was also one of the last to feature the non-flexible fuel tanks, which made it very dangerous in case of a crash where the fuel tank ruptured and huge fires spread. And it's also the last customer car, the Matra MS080, I believe, that was purchased by Tyrrell. Is the last customer built car to win a world championship. So yeah, that was my pick for the 70s. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you soon for the next one. And the wing is gonna go on the Lotus 49. There you go. See you soon. Thanks.